And welcome to the Redmen TV. It's newsroom time, and it's a little bit earlier on in the week because of Paris Saint-Germain away. But I am joined today by author Jeff Goulding.
That sounds good.
It does sound good, doesn't it? What's your day job title?
I'm an assistant director at Verzachley Hospital.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you prefer to be known as?
Author Jeff Goulding.
Author Jeff Goulding. I like that. Author extraordinaire, Jeff Goulding.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me today, mate.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. Enjoyed our last talk. I enjoyed your last book, Red Odyssey. I'm really enjoying Stanley Park Story so far. So we'll get into that a little bit later on into the podcast. But we'll start with some general Liverpool stuff. As we filmed, Mane has just been passed fit for Liverpool versus Paris Saint-Germain. So we'll just do a couple of minutes on that. We'll talk a little bit about the transfers. We'll talk about the derby upcoming as well, and then we'll get into Stanley Park Story. So, Mane, you happy that he's going to be available?
Oh, too right. Yeah, I mean, that was a bit of a worry, wasn't it? I thought the fact he's just signed a new contract going into a massive game like that, it was probably the stage was set for him to make a big difference. And when the news came out, after the weekend that he was not well, that was a huge worry. I did wonder whether it was a little bit of mind games, to be honest with you, because I think PSG have been doing that with Mbappe, haven't they? And Neymar, but no, huge relief that he's going to be playing.
Is it as simple as he's fit, he's going to be starting for you now? Because me and Paul did a podcast a little while ago, and the options didn't seem great for anybody else playing that left wing position, did they?
No, not for me. I think if he's fit, even if he's 80% fit, in my opinion, he'd have to start. And I talked to some of the lads I go to the game with, and they say he can be a bit frustrating at times, but he's one of those players that he's going to make a difference in a game at some point, even if he's not on his he's not at his best. At some point he'll make a difference, so I think he's got to be on the pitch.
He's one of those players. I kind of get the frustration side of things, because he flirts on the edge of world class and dog shit sometimes, doesn't he? Yeah. He does things and you're like, man, this lad can play, and then others and you're like, where's your first touch gone, mate?
Yeah.
Why is your second the tackle? It's baffling, but it is that I don't think he knows what he's doing sometimes.
And I think that's the thing. It's the unpredictability, isn't it? I mean, some of his decision making can be poor, can't it? When he should pass, he'll try and take it on, and when he should take it on, he'll pass. But no one knows. He doesn't know what he's going to do, and defenders don't know what he's going to do, and that's an asset. I think that's a huge asset.
Almost a bit like Louis Garcia was a bit like that sometimes, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He would frustrate you sometimes. I think Mane's a better player, much better player. But I'm just drawing the comparison with, again, you've got no idea what he's going to do. I think, last time out against Red Star, I felt he was really poor away from home. But there's been games this season when he's been our best player. Yeah,
I'd agree with that, yeah. And he chips in with his goals, doesn't he?
6 so far, I think it is, in the Premier League so far.
That's incredible for someone who people describe as frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So no, I think even if he's 80% fit, I think he's got to be in the team.
Okay, well, we'll move it on then. We've got some transfers to talk about. We don't normally talk about transfers on this. It's rumours more than anything else. So the three lads that are all been linked over the last sort of 24 to 48 hours are Asensio from Real Madrid, Pulisic from Dortmund, and Dembele from Barcelona. I don't know how much truth's in any of these, Jeff, and I can't imagine there'll be a lot. But apparently we bid 160 million quid for Asensio in the summer. I missed that one. I didn't hear that one at all. Obviously he's not in favour at Real Madrid. He's reportedly unhappy. Klopp does seem to have wanted him. They're reporting it over in Spain that we bid 160 in the summer, and that Real Madrid would be open for us to make a bid close to that again. Are you surprised?
Very. That tells me that Real Madrid are looking to offload him. So the stories are being leaked from Real Madrid's end. I don't remember hearing about him at all. Certainly heard about the Dembele stories, and the Pulisic story's been around for a long time, isn't it? And there's an obvious link there. Klopp's talked in praise of him. The player himself has talked about how he admires Klopp. I've heard the Dembele stories. I'd be very surprised if we bought anyone in January, to be honest with you. I did read, and I can't remember what outlet it was, but I did read this morning on my way in that someone's talking about the possibility of a Naby Keita style deal for Pulisic. Yeah. So whether we kind of agree a fee with a view to him coming in the summer, but I can't see us bringing a player from Dortmund midway through the season. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think the reports are that it'd be 70 million, but you'd have to essentially short it now, and then he'd come to us in the summer now.
So that's a premium then to get the deal done now.
Yeah, so I think what me and Paul were talking about it is that, you know, you're paying a premium, but you're paying a premium so that you don't get into a bidding war in the summer. But 70 million for me, if you're buying him in the summer, he's got a year left on his contract. He's a 20-year-old lad who's he's had about 8 appearances this season for Dortmund. He's not even in their best side. He started the first 4 games of the season, and then he's been 4 substitute appearances since. You know, 70 million seems a lot, although his ceiling's very, very high. 70 million with a year left on your contract seems scandalous to me, and not something that I think Jurgen Klopp would do.
Well, I mean, it's obscene, and I completely agree with you, but I just think all logic's gone out the window with transfer fees. Now, you would have probably said a few years ago, if a player only had a year left on his contract, then you're looking at 15, 20 million if you're lucky for him. But now it just doesn't seem to matter, and the market is completely crazy, and players just seem to be worth whatever someone's willing to pay for them. I wouldn't have said Klopp would have paid 75 million for a central defender, or 65 was it for Alisson? Yeah, I just would. You know, a year before that happened, I would have laughed if someone told me that was going to happen. But I think there's a realisation that if we're going to compete, we might have to pay silly money for the players we need. And as long as it's the players he believes in and the players he thinks are going to fit and solve the problems we've got, then it's worth taking that punt. And, you know, I think Pulisic, you're going to get a sell on. You're going to get money back, aren't you, if you end up selling him? So no, I would not be surprised if that was the fee, but I would be surprised if he came in January.
Yeah, I think it's mad, isn't it? I think Liverpool fans clamouring almost for a signing in January when, again, you know, we're playing the best football we've played in that we've got the best results.
Yeah.
In the Premier League era so far, our defence is far superior to last year. Our points on the board is far superior to last year. We're closing that gap on Manchester City. It doesn't look like it's going to be 25 points again, if there is a gap at all between us. Yeah. And I look at what Tottenham didn't do in the summer, and the fact that they didn't buy anybody, and the uproar from Tottenham fans at the time, and you're thinking to yourself, I was sat there, I was doing a podcast with I forget who it was actually. Dave Maddock, and I said I really admired Tottenham for doing that, because I think there's value to having a squad that can grow together and, you know, not see this sort of up and down that you get when new players are integrated into it. And it looks now like Tottenham are only 3 points behind us.
No, that's
They're
right.
Notoriously slow starters. Klopp likes to have that consistency throughout the season, doesn't he? Which is why he doesn't tend to buy players in January, Virgil van Dijk apart.
Yeah, and the Van Dijk case is unusual because he was trying to get him earlier on, and I think we probably just had to wait. But I think you're right. And the other factor that I think comes into it with Klopp is I think he's always looking at the academy. I think he's always looking at the players coming up and thinking, if I buy a player in this position, will it halt the progression of a player, you know, that might be coming through? And I think he does think like that. I don't know, it's unusual, isn't it? Football culture now is very much, we want success and we want it now, and fans look at City going out and spending hundreds of millions of pounds, they look at PSG, they look at Barcelona and Real Madrid, and they want a bit of that, and there's no appetite, doesn't seem to be an appetite for development. And we saw that, didn't we? You know, it's been a strange season, because you're right, we're playing decent football, we're winning games, we're the best start in the Premier League era, certainly, and yet people don't seem overly ecstatic at the moment, do they? Which is bizarre to me. And I think people are just, you know, looking for whatever they can get to bridge that gap instantly. And I'd rather we developed, and I'd rather we built a team that was going to have longevity over a few years, rather than just buying players who are going to stay a couple of seasons and then move on to the next stepping stone. And
that's how Mourinho's done it, isn't it? You know, he's bought for the time that he's going to be at the football club, and you know, he's had success with it, and fair play to him for that. And I've said this line a few times, I've always felt that Liverpool fans wanted the success that Jurgen Klopp had at Dortmund in toppling Bayern Munich and winning the title two years on the bounce, but they didn't want the 4 years prior to that, where he built the side up.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted that instantaneous success that you've mentioned, and Klopp doesn't believe in it like that. And it'd be interesting to hear his opinion on it, wouldn't it?
Because it would, absolutely.
It would shut half the fan base up if he just told them exactly how he felt about developing youth and why he doesn't sign players in January. But then he said this stuff before.
He said it when he joined.
Yeah.
His message when he joined the club was, he was almost saying the history's like an albatross hanging around our necks. It's dragging us down, and actually what we need to do is forget that and start again, reset almost. That's what he was saying. And if we do that, we can go on a journey together. And he was talking about it as a journey. He didn't say we're going to win the league in his first season. He didn't say. He said something like, if I'm still here in 3 years and I haven't won a title or something, then maybe I'll go and manage in Switzerland. I think he said something like that. So he was telling us right from the outset that this was going to be a development. It wasn't going to be an overnight thing. And as an old timer, if you like, I'd much prefer to see that. I'd much prefer to see us go through a bit of pain, build a team that can last. As opposed to him come in, win 2 titles, then it all blows up in the 3rd season, and then he gets the sack and we start all over again, which is what Mourinho does everywhere he goes, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We're looking at Jurgen Klopp and looking at the formation that Liverpool have played this season. You know, I think everybody's talking about us being a bit more pragmatic in this 4-2-3-1 that we've been playing. Do you think this is by design that Jurgen's decided to go with this, or do you think it's something else?
I think I'm starting to become convinced of that, really. I think initially it was, I think this is a World Cup hangover. I think players are taking time to get into their stride. But the more I listen to him and the more I see the way we play, I think there's some design here. I think he's kind of realised that we burned brightly in spells last season, didn't we? But we were inconsistent in other periods, and we could score, but we could concede goals. And now it's much more steady. And I guess that's not as easy on the eye and not as exciting as last season. But oh God, how great is it to be 1-0 up and not think you've got to score another 4 before you can be confident? I mean, last season we could be 3-0 up, couldn't we? And you'd still be thinking,
oh shit! If they get one here,
if they get one, then our heads will go. And no, I mean, long may that kind of consistency continue. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think maybe after Christmas we'll see him open up a little bit more. Only because I don't think he likes it. I think he likes it. I think he said something like, I'd much prefer the free-flowing football. But I think it's about staying in contention till after Christmas. We've got that massive game on the 3rd. Is it the 3rd of January against City?
It's around then, yeah. I can't
remember the date
exactly.
Game that. So if we're still within a point or 2 of City when we go into that game, then it's, psychologically that could be huge, couldn't it? And if he opens up against them and we get a result, then that momentum that will create and the excitement that will create going into the second half of the season, I think, will be huge.
You're old enough to remember, obviously, title-winning sides, and I was 7 or 8 when Liverpool last won the title, so I remember it. I remember the scenes. I remember my dad being ecstatic. I remember being ecstatic myself, but I didn't live it like you live a season nowadays. Was it always this difficult at the beginning of the year where it's like everything's so tense, or was there never, because we were the best side, did it not feel like this?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult, even though I've kind of, since I've read extensively about our history, so I've got knowledge now but you always tend to look back with rose-tinted glasses, don't you? You always tend to look back and think they were but there were bad games then, do you know what I mean? I remember us losing 1-0 at home to Wolves. Wolves were bottom of the league. I remember that season we won the treble. It was awful in the run-up to Christmas. And we were struggling, and then they just went on this unbelievable run and ended up winning the treble. It wasn't all all in the garden wasn't rosy for many of those seasons. What I do remember, funnily, is as a kid I was always dead nervous before a game. The thought of my heroes losing a game was just devastating to me, and luckily it didn't happen that often. But I remember the sort of the mid-80s to the late 80s. I remember really being arrogant about football. I remember going to the match and just being utterly convinced that we were going to win. And I remember even having a conversation with a lad it was a schoolmate who went the match with, saying, this is boring, really. We win every week here, And if you did lose, I remember losing 2-0 to Sheffield Wednesday, and I think Verratti scored for them. Grobler made an absolute howler. And I remember the feeling coming out that ground wasn't one of anger or frustration or fury. It was sheer bewilderment and confusion that we'd lost the game at Anfield. It just didn't happen. So mixed, really. The worst spells, looking back, you look at the fixture list and you look at the results, the worst spells when Liverpool struggled. But they always found a way. And it's like the United teams, isn't it, of the 90s. They always found a way, even when they weren't playing well. And that's what we're doing now. That's why I can't understand why people are frustrated now, because even when we're not at it, we're finding a way to win.
Do you think it's got something to... I know we're massively off topic here, but I don't mind. I don't mind that. I enjoy this. We can talk about transfers and stuff on different shows. It's absolutely fine. Do you think it's part and parcel of maybe the generation of Liverpool fans who haven't seen Liverpool win a league title? Do you think they get more enjoyment out of these comeback victories in different types of competitions, or the struggle more than, just getting 3 points on the boards? Because it could prove fruitless for us to keep getting 3 points on the board now, and we still might not win the league anyway.
Yeah, maybe that is true. What I would say, though, is although it's been barren since 1990 in terms of league title wins, we've had plenty of cup success to keep us warm, haven't we? I think the problem now is it has been, 28 years, nearly 30 years without a league title, and I think that's starting to weigh, really heavy at a club the size of Liverpool, the fan base the size of Liverpool's. I think that the absence of a title is starting to weigh heavy, and the longer that goes on, I think, the less patient people are becoming. It's a bit like when I was going to match in the late 70s and the 80s, we didn't really worry about Man United, we didn't really think about Man United, because they'd gone 20 odd years without winning a title. I remember us having a banner with 20 odd years on it or something like that. I know they do that back to us now. And I think they were a bit like we're becoming. They were, their fans were getting really frustrated and bitter and stuff like that. And I think that's probably what it is. I think we just need to put that to bed. We just need to win a league title. And I think, whoever delivers that for us is going to become a god. Yeah. Because it will just put all that to bed and reset everything. And it's interesting that not even the Champions League successes have stopped that happening, have they? They haven't stopped that kind of hunger and frustration.
No, it is interesting. Okay, we'll go back onto the transfers for a little bit. One of the guys that we didn't talk about was Dembele from Barcelona. Rumours that he's unhappy. Rumours even that he's gone so far as to put a transfer request in. Potential fees of 85 million quid. I think this one's more for the summer as well, rather than January. I think everybody sort of understands that Jurgen's not going to buy in January. He trashed Klopp's house, didn't he, when he was trying to get a move from Dortmund? He was renting Klopp's house, I think I'm right in saying. Is that right, Tom?
I think it was like Klopp had lived there or something.
Oh, right, okay. I thought he was renting Klopp's house or something like that, and he trashed it.
Well, that would be a better story.
It definitely would be, yeah. It's probably the fiction writer in me that's made that one up. But here's a guy who's clearly talented. Barcelona spent a lot of money on him, but he's got that pace. He's only 21 years old. I think he scored like 7 goals for Barcelona this season as well. So it's a guy that could make a difference for us if we were to be interested.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that Klopp is obviously on the lookout for that type of player, isn't he? He's obviously not happy with... He doesn't think we're the finished article yet. He thinks we're probably still, 1 or 2 players short in that kind of attacking midfield type role. So I don't know. The way I look at it is a third of the way through the football season now. Things are going really, really well. I think probably in the summer he is going to bring in another big signing in that type of position, playing that type of role. But it all just seems like, we're approaching the transfer window, so these stories start emerging, don't they? And we start getting linked to these type of players. What is reassuring to me, what is something to be pleased about, is we're now dining at the big table in the transfer window, aren't we?
The 3 players we've been linked with: Real Madrid, Barcelona, Dortmund.
Yeah, so we're no longer, and Klopp doesn't seem to be a manager who will give... Michael Edwards, he's not going to give him, here's my plan A, here's my plan B, here's my plan C. He's saying, I want this player.
Go and get him.
So
do anything you can.
Yeah, so I suppose what's getting leaked is that Liverpool are after a certain type of player. But who his first choice out of those 3 would be is only he knows, I guess.
Yeah, and you can understand why he'd want it. Even just, we talked about it at the top of the show, we talked about Sadio Mane being fit. the options, if he wasn't fit, were thin on the ground. You know, you're changing almost your philosophy to fit a Firmino or a Lallana over on the left-hand side.
Absolutely.
We don't see Shaqiri over there. We haven't seen Shaqiri or Salah over on that left-hand side. So that sort of left wing forward who can also play an attacker midfielder, like Fekir, linked with in the summer, of course, is definitely something that Jurgen thinks we're light. And I think it's obvious when you just look at it and you go, well, Mane's the one player in this team who we don't have an understudy for.
No, it would be a huge loss if he wasn't going to play. So I think that's right.
Okay, we'll move on to the derby then, before we get into Stanley Park Story. It's obviously a game that you love. Says, what are we looking at here? 255 pages. It's a game that you've thought about a lot over the last few months and year. No Henderson for the derby at the weekend. Big loss?
Do you know, again, he's another player who divides opinion, isn't he? I don't know what happened to him against Watford. He just completely seemed to lose his head, didn't he? Something went wrong. In a sense, yes, it's a loss, but I think we've got options that we can use if he's not going to play, and he's not played a massive part this season so far. So I think we can cope without Henderson in the team.
And I saw something on Twitter. I've not fact-checked this. But Jordan Henderson has won more Merseyside derbies as a Liverpool player than any Everton player alive, past or present. Alive, past or present,
I know
it said.
it's definitely the current Everton team, only 2 of them have won against Liverpool ever.
That's mad, isn't it?
For other teams, presumably.
Yeah,
well, I mean, they won't have won for Everton against Liverpool, will they?
Not at Anfield.
No. No.
Definitely not at Anfield.
No.
But it's mad, isn't it? I think, you know, it's been one of those games, hasn't it, where at Anfield they've had so little success. It has to come to an end soon.
That's my worry.
That is it. I think we were talking to Baz probably 2 years ago now from Toffee TV, and he said to us, "We won't beat you until you don't play in red." Like, he thinks that genuinely, you know, that red kit, there's something about it where the lads just shut down. And the next year we went to this deep red, didn't we? And we changed the colour and we were like, shit. So I was shitting myself for the derby last year thinking, we're not playing in the normal red. Why aren't we playing in the normal? Can we bring the normal red back for one game, please, against Everton? But you know what? I mean, it has been a happy hunting ground, Anfield, against Everton. Do you think that it will continue to be so?
I mean, we do seem to have a psychological edge over them at Anfield. I don't think they believe they can win at Anfield. So it is sort of hanging over them. That said, just looking at how they've done this season so far, and they're on a decentish run, aren't they? You know, when you think about the way they were last season, the state they were in last season, there seems to be a sense of re-emergence at Goodison. And I talked to my sort of family members who are Blues, and I wouldn't say they're cocky, or I wouldn't say they're thinking they're going to beat us, but I think they fancy they can get a draw at Anfield. At some point it's going to come to an end. Even a stop clock's right twice a day, isn't it? You know what I mean? They are eventually going to get a result at Anfield, but looking at the two teams, it's difficult to see that happening anytime soon. I think quality-wise, we're way ahead of them in terms of squad development. But the derby's one of those weird games.
In your book, it's Jimmy who's the blue, is it?
Yeah.
And in the early chapters, he's very cocky because Liverpool haven't been in the league for a long time, and he just thinks Everton are going to steamroller them. Can you see similarities between what you've written in your book and maybe what Liverpool fans are nowadays?
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is how it does come full circle in football. So very much in the 60s, Liverpool were seen as upstarts, underdogs. You know, Shankly as a big mouth, more of a media celebrity than a football man. Harry Catterick was seen as the kind of football genius, School of Science, and all of this. Everton were the better team. They'd won the FA Cup. They won. We'd never won it until 65.
Yeah.
And the FA Cup, it's hard for football fans today to realise it, but the FA Cup was such a big deal back then, you know, equivalent to the Champions League probably. So yeah, it's kind of come full circle. We're the cocky ones now because we are. I think it's fair to say we're the better team now, but that was certainly very different back then. They were much the more successful team.
How do you think Liverpool will approach this game? Do you think we'll approach it like we have done in that sort of 4-2-3-1, control the game, or will we be wary and thinking Everton might come to have a go and we'll sort of hit them on the counter?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I don't see Klopp changing his philosophy, to be honest, this season. I think probably 4-2-3-1. I think he's probably going to go pragmatic and have faith that we can do what we did against the likes of Watford. I think they will come and have a go. I think they've got players in the side that can get them goals now. Richarlison. I think Everton will come and have a go. And I think Klopp will just stick to his guns and stick to the way he's been playing up to this point.
Is there any players thinking about maybe the young lads, Trent Alexander-Arnold? Would you have him in the side because he's a local lad and it's a derby and it means so much, or would you be reticent to put him in there because young players have a tendency to lose their heads sometimes?
And we certainly saw that with Gerrard in his early career. He got sent off a couple of times in the derby, didn't he? I think Trent's a different player. I've not seen that in him. I would always want local lads in the derby because they know the importance of the game and they can transmit that to the other players in the dressing room really and get the other players up. So when Gerrard went and Carragher hung up his boots, it was kind of, for me, it was a worry that we wouldn't have that local voice, that local mentality in the dressing room. So I think, and it's not just, you wouldn't be putting him in the side just because he's a Scouser. I mean, he's quality, isn't he? You know what I mean? And he hasn't shown any sign of fear. He's had some bad games, but he hasn't shown any signs of fear, so I'd definitely have him in the side.
Okay, and my favourite part of the show, as always, talking to people more about their life, and in this instance we'll be talking about the book. So if you're just joining us on the YouTube, I'm joined by Jeff Goulding, author of Stanley Park Story, Life, Love and the Merseyside Derby. Jeff, I'm really enjoying the book so far. I've said that already. One of the things that stood out to me in the early parts of the book was something that you'd written about why Liverpool and Everton fans have come together so well over the years, and you said that it was all to do with the World War. And I've got the paragraph in front of me. I won't read it, but the book is absolutely brilliant. It's available to buy from all good bookshops
everywhere,
and Amazon, probably.
Yeah.
And Alibaba if you're abroad and you don't have Amazon. And, I started thinking about, how Everton fans came to Liverpool fans' aid after Hillsborough and all that type of stuff, and just how brilliant they've been together and the work that they're doing now in the communities for the food banks together. You